So, another long anime. A lot of you may never have heard of this anime, for a variety of reasons of course. The Toaru or Raildex series is one that I'd say is certainly underrated. There are many reasons for that of course, and why its popularity here in the West is nowhere near that of in Japan, but I'll get to that later. Raildex, and specifically Railgun, quickly rose the rankings of my favourite franchises earlier this year, and ever since I've wanted to talk about it, so here's why I think you should consider watching A Certain Scientific Railgun. Academy City, a beautiful place with a not-so-beautiful dark side, a place of booming technology where pseudoscience has become the reality. Academy City houses a wide variety of espers, people who can perform the unexplainable through means of intense conditioning and experimental technology. And when I say people, I mean teenagers, because we're watching anime. Every esper is unique, with powers ranging from telekinesis to our protagonist's control of electricity. Electricity powers are currently not very new in anime. If you look here, here, and here, then you'll see what I'm on about. As with a lot of power-based shonen series, eventually you'll just run out of powers, and that's why we have the Windex dude from My Hero. Where anime like this sink or float is with their powers and their power systems, and Raildex certainly has some of the most interesting that I've seen. There are 5 levels to Academy City's power system, ranging from level 0 with no powers all the way to level 5 with broken ones. The way these powers actually end up working in tandem is usually a treat to watch, and unlike a lot of shonen fights that simply end where the character flashback no jutsus to gain a new power, fights in Raildex usually show not a progression of power and skill, but an evolution of tactics and unique ways of utilising their powers in different situations. One of the benefits to having such a power system is that it's all scientifically explained, and that makes the fights, of course, while still in an anime, feel grounded and not gratuitous. For example, our protagonist Misaki Mikoto can use her electricity esper ability for many things, including the name of the show, a railgun. Now, that is only possible due to a scientific phenomenon called the Lorentz force, and yeah, so as you can see there is science and a whole lot of numbers, but the only statistic that you really should be focusing on is that only 36% of you are subscribed, so why don't you— okay, I'll move on. Misaki Mikoto is our protagonist, and she makes a damn good one. A strong-willed and hot-headed girl with a power that's just so satisfying to watch. Her development over the seasons is something that's truly enjoyable to see. She's joined by a fun ensemble of side characters that all get their action and slice-of-life moments, with the main cast consisting of Kuroko, Saturn, and Ueharu, who all have their intricacies that I won't quite spoil here. Oh, and I guess Toma, but he's actually the protagonist of Railgun's parent story, A Certain Magical Index, and now I've opened that can of worms. Well, I guess let's address the elephant in the room. To a part of the script, my brain froze, as I struggled to answer the question, well, what do I watch after? So Railgun's actually a spin-off, and forgive me for not mentioning that earlier. Its parent story is A Certain Magical Index, and that franchise has a few spin-offs, including Railgun. The reason I selected Railgun to make this video on is I believe it's the most accessible. Regardless of this being a big franchise to tackle, it's quite alright to only watch Railgun, as it certainly works as a standalone, but in case you want to go deeper, I will leave some help in the description. What the benefits of this are, however, is crossovers and the like, allowing for things like multiple tales of the same event that makes certain arcs really brilliant. But again, it's definitely solid even as a standalone. Speaking of mundane things, I'll note that this is certainly not solely just a shonen series, so if you're just looking for a compilation of fights knit into a linear narrative, you might be disappointed, as a lot of this show actually ends up being slice of life, but in my opinion that does elevate the action when it happens, and make the emotional moments hit much harder as a result. And the best arcs from the show, Here and Here, combine a great balance of the two to ensure that I was never bored. The source material for Railgun was a manga that's still ongoing. How it functions as an adaptation is actually surprisingly well from what I've heard. The anime includes a few new anime original arcs, or as you might know them, filler, but it's basically indistinguishable from the actual show and ends up being a fun part of it nonetheless. And by that I mean, the anime original arcs are certainly not a typical filler that you'd see in a regular shonen anime that focus on nonsensical slice-of-life moments and weak villains. Both the manga and anime are ongoing though, so you'll have more content to look forward to in the future. The music here is done by Maiko Yuichi, with sound direction by the wonderful Jin Akutagawa, and if you've seen my video on ReZero, then you'll know the direction here is going to be phenomenal. You may also know Maiko Yuichi from other works like Akudama Drive, for which she delivered a similarly stunning OST. The music here really does elevate the fights, my personal favourite example being the track Weakest vs Strongest, and even the day-to-day ambient tracks are more than serviceable. In fact, you've been listening to a few in the background. In an era of anime that's dominated by new and emerging, constantly hype, unrealistic shonen series, it can actually be a nice change of pace to watch something a little more relaxed, a little more grounded, and with struggles you can relate to just that bit more. A certain scientific railgun really cleverly weaves slice of life and shonen battles together in a way that I haven't really seen in anime before, besides subpar filler arcs, and that's reason enough to give this a go. It has a really unique power system, the likes of which I haven't seen in anime. Combine this with a genuinely gripping and emotional story with multiple branches, and I think you are in for an enjoyable watch. I know getting into multiple series anime can be difficult, after all, I've talked about it on this channel before, but with the right amount of patience, I think you might enjoy the return you'll get out of it, and maybe even find a new franchise to get into, and that's why you should consider watching A Certain Scientific Railgun. Thanks for watching. If you're still not sure about long anime, why not check out my last video on the topic, or if you're after something more digestible, my video on ReZero. As always, please do consider subscribing and following me on Twitter to stay connected, and I'll catch you later.